webinar series for this month. I want to thank our speakers and our participants for joining us again this month. And like we usually say, you are the reason why we do this every month. Today, we'll be focusing on another very important topic, which is dual-use research in Africa, balancing scientific innovation and biosecurity risk. And for the sake of those joining us for the first time, this webinar series is organized by Global Emerging Pathogens Treatment Consortium, GET. And please permit me to talk about GET for 1 minute. GET is Global Emerging Pathogens Treatment Consortium. It's a non-governmental organization that was set up over 10 years ago at the peak of the Ebola crisis that ravaged a lot of countries in West Africa. Ebola outbreak then showed that West African countries, and indeed a lot of countries in sub-Saharan Africa, lacked the capacity to cope with such level of health emergency, and there was a need to set up organizations that will continue to work with both government and non-governmental institutions to build their capacity to cope with emerging biosecurity threats. And this organization, GET, Global Emerging Pathogens Treatment Consortium, was one of the non-governmental organizations that was set up then with the hope or with the aim of working with both government and non-governmental organizations to build capacity to cope with emerging biosecurity threats. And that is what we've been doing in the last 10 years, working with governments, non-governmental organizations, and international organizations to build capacity against biosecurity threats in Africa. And one of the platforms that we've used in recent years is our monthly webinar series. The webinar series has become a platform to discuss emerging issues in the area of One Health and biosecurity and to build capacity of participants all over the world. This series have been organized by GET in the last 4 years every month. And every month we bring together top subject matter experts to discuss emerging issues in the area of biosecurity and One Health. And this month we'll be focusing on another very important topic, which is dual-use research in Africa, balancing scientific innovation and biosecurity threats. You agree with me that one of the few advantages we had, especially in Africa, during COVID and immediately after COVID was an increase in research activities, increase in molecular laboratories, in BSL-2, BSL-3s, and few BSL-4 labs in Africa, increase in biotechnology activities and vaccine research. And this has really supported research in the area of health, the area of biotechnology, environment and agricultural development in Africa. But with this significant improvement in research, we agree with me that it also has its own biosecurity challenges and biosecurity threats, especially with complex research that have the ability to also research that designed for benefits of mankind, but also have the ability to be used for the wrong purposes. And with the increase in these laboratories, increase in activities of non-state actors in Africa and challenge with scientists and experts having the right level of training and capacity building, it brings us to the challenge with dual-use research and the biosecurity threats on the continent. So it is very important for us to maximize the opportunities of this research increase in Africa and innovations that we're having. It's very important for us to take serious about security threats that goes with it and ensure that the research we are having and the innovations that we are having in Africa is not misused for the wrong purpose. And that is why we're organizing this webinar today. GET is organizing it to discuss issues around dual-use research in Africa and balancing the scientific innovations and biosecurity threats. And with us today, our top subject matter experts that will be speaking to us on dual-use research and how we can maximize the benefits and minimize the challenges as much as possible. Without spending much time, I'll go straight to our speakers. But because before I go straight to the speakers, I will lay down the rules for the webinar today. We have 4 speakers and each of them will be speaking for about 20 minutes. And after their presentations, they will have the opportunity, we'll give opportunity, if time permits, to one of our participants to speak. And they will also respond to questions from our participants. For our participants that have questions, just go straight to the question and answer experts or link on the Zoom link and put in your questions there, and our speakers will respond to them after their presentations. Without spending much time, I'll go straight to the first speakers. And I also want to remind our participants that we'll be sharing the presentations of the speakers with them with their permission. And we'll also be sharing the participants' certificate of participation with the participants immediately after this webinar series. So we'll go straight to the first speaker of the day. I'm going to read a bio and hand over the floor to her to speak for about 20 minutes. Our first speaker today is Dr. Aparupa Sekputa. Dr. Aparupa is an accomplished scientist, life science safety and security practitioner, and global bioscience and technology policy expert with an emphasis on US and Global South policy. She currently serves as a senior program officer for NTI as Nuclear Threat Initiative Global Biological Policy and Programs Team, where she leads the Biosecurity Innovation and Risk Reduction Initiative portfolio. This initiative focuses on preventing biotech catastrophes at the intersection of technology and life science, such as those arising from AI bioconvergence. Prior to joining NTI, she served at the University of California, Merced, as a campus biosafety and biosecurity officer and director of containment research laboratories. In recognition of our outstanding service during the pandemic, the Chancellor of University of California, Merced, presented her with the COVID-19 Hero Award. Dr. Sekputa is a sought-after speaker and expert in global biological threat reduction. She has given numerous talks advocating for the safe and secure use of emerging technologies. Originally from India, Dr. Sekputa holds a doctorate degree in biological sciences, a master's degree in molecular genetics and biotechnology from Michigan Technological University, and a Master of Science in Biotechnology from Bangalore University in India. She's a registered biosafety professional with ABSA International. Dr. Sekputa, we are very happy to have you again on GET platform today, and thank you for being a very good friend of GET. I'll hand over the floor to you to speak for about 20 minutes. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Bobidoy. Thank you for the invitation and giving me the opportunity to speak here. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to share my slides, please. Can you make it full screen? Is it possible to make the slides full screen, please? I think you can just go to design or tools, just make it full screen. I think it was working just before when we tested it was working, but it always doesn't work at the end moment. Thank you. Great. Thank you so much. Again, thank you, Bobidoy, and thank you for GET for having me here today. It's my pleasure. And like Bobidoy suggested, I'm going to talk about the dual-use research and its impact on Africa's health security. And we'll talk about some benefits and biosecurity implications and what we can do about it. But like Bobita said, my name is Aparupa Sengupta and I work for Nuclear Threat Initiative's Global Biological Policy and Program. And again, it's my pleasure to be here. Next slide, please. So before I jump into the details of what we are going to talk about, let's just very quickly review what is a dual-use research of concern. So dual-use research of concern, or DURC, refers to work that is beneficial in intent, any kind of research that is beneficial in intent, but could be misapplied to cause harm. Some examples include creating more dangerous pathogens, misusing synthetic DNA, which is very commonly used these days, or releasing uncontrolled gene drives, which Africa has been doing a lot of work, Uganda and some other West African countries. We'll talk about that in just a second. So DURC is not a theoretical problem. It is actually a recognized global concern with very real local implications. So it's real, and we really need to talk about it, and it's timely that we are discussing this matter. Next slide, please. So why are we talking about it right now? So because Africa is witnessing rapid growth in life sciences, sequence hubs, synthetic biology labs, and innovation ecosystems are emerging at pace. And Bobedoy was indicating some of that in his introduction. And at the same time, we live in a time where enabling technologies like CRISPR, AI bioinformatics, and gene drives carry both enormous opportunity, and we'll look at some of those opportunities in just a second. But at the same time, they also have significant risk. So this makes it critical to have an informed discussion on balancing innovation and security, because most of the times the benefits are so enormous, we miss that it comes with some risks. And so if we don't balance it, it can be potentially misused. Next slide, please. So some emerging technologies with dual use concerns. So for example, technologies currently raising the DURC attention, that includes genome editing, CRISPR. CRISPR has been there for a while, but in Africa especially, gene drives for vector control is starting to get used a lot. There's synthetic biology, different kind of synthetic biology research that's going on. De novo DNA synthesis is very common. High throughput sequencing paired with AI for pathogen design analysis is becoming very, very common. And dissemination modalities, open protocols, preprints of DNAs, automated system. So each of this can provide health benefits because, of course, we use it for biomedical benefits, but also presents misuse potential. Or even if it's not deliberate, there are accidental risk, related risks there if not governed properly. CRISPR, for example, it allows precise gene editing, but could also enable harmful modifications. Gene drive technologies could eliminate malaria forever because the way the gene drives are created, malaria-carrying mosquitoes can be removed forever, but they carry ecological risk if the containment is not proper. Same way, synthetic biology lowers barriers to design organisms. It is also reducing the cost the way the technology is available nowadays. But again, it accelerates some kind of risk if not moderately, properly managed. AI also, as we know, artificial intelligence and bioconvergence is a very common topic these days. And so that also accelerates pathogen risks, pathogen analysis. It enables pathogen analysis, but it also introduces risk if not governed properly, if the risks are not mitigated properly. So I think it will be wise to say in a nutshell that each technology offers its own benefit, but each creates risk if the governance is weak or not applied properly all over the place in the same similar way. Next slide, please. So here, I just wanted to give some examples how AI life sciences convergence is occurring, or how it is actually going to be helpful for Africa or any global South region. So development of vaccines and treatments are going to get much more easier to conduct, cheaper, precise, prediction of diseases, improved detection and attributions. And of course, food security is a huge issue in the south regions in different parts of Africa, and it has the power of improved crop yield and quality. So that's that's definitely a big plus. So keeping that in mind, next slide, please. Keeping that in mind, just to see where the African science, where the scientific landscape, I'm sorry, is that oh yeah, that's right. That's the next slide. Sorry. So where is the African landscape currently? So the continent is home to a rapidly expanding network of labs. So not only Africa is actually doing some groundbreaking work in innovation, it also had a network of labs, sequencing centers, and innovation hubs. So Africa has put in a lot of money. The research ecosystem is becoming great. There are organizations like SynBio Africa, Biostruct Africa, and multiple other regional collaborations that are leading the way. So this is all good thing. So these hubs actually accelerates locally relevant research such as vaccine design, diagnostics, structural biology, vector control technologies, while lowering the technical barriers to risk. So things are becoming easier, cheaper, precise to do, which is of course a good thing. However, the capacity is uneven because African continent is a big continent. So some countries have, of course, really, world-class labs and their capacities are super developed, while others lack basic biosafety infrastructure. And this fragmentation, as we'll see, is actually a problem. Next slide, please. Let's look very quickly at the governance framework. So it's not that governance frameworks are not there. Actually, there are multiple governance layers are in play. Globally, there's Biological Weapons Convention. There's a Cartagena Protocol. WHO's global DURC guidance is there. So I will speak a little bit more about on the WHO's DURC guidance, which is really good. So WHO launched a global guidance framework for the responsible use of life science and has been operationalizing it through regional workshops in Africa to test national implementation tools. So that's great work that's going on. Even Africa CDC is also updating its biosafety and biosecurity strategy 2025 to 2030 to harmonize regional approaches, independent assessments. So there's a lot of work that is actually going on regionally and internationally. And then there is organizations such as NTI, Nuclear Threat Initiative, my employer, who's working on the Africa Health Security Index to track preparedness, reveal gaps in governance. So actually these gaps could be filled in real time. And actually the capacity, health security capacity becomes better and better. So there's a lot of work that is happening. And these initiatives have created a foundation for coordinated DURC governance, but the issue is sustained funding. I always say that in all my presentations that we are very reactive. When something happens, we reacted. When COVID happened, we reacted. But instead of reacting, we have to be in the prevention mindset. And so sustained funding for that is absolutely needed in the entire world, just not in Africa. But of course, in Africa also, sustained funding and African leadership in design and implementation of all these initiatives are needed. And it is happening. But we have to make sure that it's sustainable and it's actually happening on a regular manner. For example, Africa CDC and AU initiatives like APET, they are taking a lot of initiatives in making sure these regional frameworks are strengthened, etc. However, the challenge remains, like a regional context, its framework is very patchy. It's uneven, and region actually has the capacity. And one of the big Did you guys lose me for a minute? Can someone tell me if you guys lost me for a minute?
Yes,
Yes, you
not
did.
for a minute, but I think I can hear you clearly now.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. The internet must be patchy. Talking about patchy networks.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Okay, I'll just repeat my last point. All I was saying is that although there are a lot of efforts and initiatives happening in Africa, two things that needs to be done is making sure that these frameworks are implemented, they're harmonized, and they're not patchy. And the second thing that has to be done is that the risk, when we are talking about, they are not done by one person or one certain kind of people. It should be multidisciplinary, starting from scientists, biosecurity experts, ethicists, community representatives. They're all important to kind of come to a risk review and risk mitigation plan. And that should be done in proportion to the severity and plausibility of misuse, because depending on the technology, depending on the science, it will differ. And so these all people are extremely important. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Great. So coming to that, in my opinion, of course, there are a lot of things we can talk about, but if we just focus, there are 4 gaps that stand out to me. So the first one is limited DURC specific oversight. And even before that, I will say limited DURC specific understanding. And that's why for today's presentation, I've decided to show you example, a case study, just to understand how the DURC, because DURC is a word which is dual use research of concern. It could be, depending on what research or what technology you're using, it could be used in any extent. So it's very important to understand what DURC stands for, and then to understand how DURC should be implemented depending on what technology or what research or what convergence of technology and research you're using. Second, uneven biosafety infrastructure and training. I said that already before, that some African countries are really, really strong. And then there are some regions where there are not enough infrastructure, enough human resource. And that's a problem, because the cross-region, until it is cross-regionally implemented in a non-fragmented manner, the risk and the weakness and vulnerability always remains. Third one, in my opinion, is institutional review committee with limited authority. They should really be given a much more better authority in terms of deciding what research should move on, what risk mitigation measures should be in place, because they are the local authority. They're first line of defense. So think about it from the public health perspective. They are really the first line of defense. So we need to capacitate them in order for them to take the authority and make the right decision, which in down the line protects the public health or the public health security. And fourth, and very important, and I can't say this enough, funder policy. Because funding comes with a lot of funding for innovation, compliance, etc. But the long-term capacity building, and capacity building just doesn't mean functional building of like labs. Capacity building actually means starting to end, cradle to grave. There is a uniformity, there is a systemic approach, training the scientists, training the administrators, making sure they have what they need, making sure the facilities are actually working. And each year, the facilities are tested and ensured that actually they're functioning each year. It's not a one-time thing, it's a sustained practices, excuse me. And funders have a lot of leverage, they have a lot of power, and they should really, really use that. I always say that. So these are the 4 things, I think, in short, I would say that we need to focus on. Next slide, please. So I would say this is an example. I mean, this is not be all end all, but this is just an example. This malaria control program, which is a great program that Uganda and some of the West African countries are taking initiatives in building. So this is a program that we should learn something from. So this program, these countries are piloting for malaria control. So this is a classic DURC example, right? So giving an example of DURC, this has a high potential benefit. Why? Because this way, a biggest problem, one of the biggest public threat issues of Africa could be really resolved by using these gene drives. However, if there are no right containment, if the risk assessment and mitigation is not properly done, and if it gets out of control, can you imagine the consequence, ecological risk, and the paramount risk that it will occur, just not in that particular region, but all across Africa, and in time, all across the world. So this is a perfect example of DURC, that how a beneficial research could really turn into a big problem. So the lessons learned should be really here. The community acceptance is essential. For example, you pick a region in Africa where you are using this program or you are running this program, and you don't have the community transparently involved. They have no idea what's happening in a certain region. And some way, these gene-drive mosquitoes actually escape from the containment. Can you imagine what kind of problem, what kind of regional issue or community issue you are going to have? So that is very important to understand to begin with, not at the mid or at the end of the program. So community involvement, transparency, building trust, this is non-negotiable. And phased governance is the only sustainable path. So the more we learn, the more we apply, the more we move forward. Which brings me to my next slide, please. So COVID-19, right? We all have lived through it. We all have, experienced it. So absolutely, that is something absolutely essential to take some lessons from there. So what did COVID-19 teach us? COVID-19 taught us some hard lessons. Our surveillance systems, and this is, by the way, of course, I'm giving this talk about Africa, but this is true about the entire world, really. Global North or Global South, nobody was prepared for this level of catastrophe. So the surveillance systems were not prepared. They're inadequate. The rapid response was uneven, fragmented to the best, and public trust was fragile. So this is what we learned. So any kind of public health hazard happens, for example, in the time of COVID, we saw that happen. Now, DURC governance, because we are trying to get up, we are trying to be forward-leaning, we are trying to get ahead and make sure that this kind of issue doesn't happen again, especially in the world that we live in, which is not traditional biology only. It is now traditional biology mixed with technological advances and a lot of convergence of tech and biotech. So DURC governance must avoid all the same weaknesses that we already faced during COVID-19. And so preparedness, transparency, and trust building are the key. Next slide, please. Another aspect which we don't talk about a lot, but it's absolutely equally important as the governance, the technical legal governance, is the ethical and social side of it. Africa has experienced generally, and especially in COVID, we have all seen African continent has experienced inequitable research partnerships. A lot of regions were vulnerable and they were hit the hardest. We have all seen that. So we must really ensure benefit sharing and sovereignty within Africa and outside, and community engagement and inclusion of civil society and indigenous knowledge, which is the local knowledge, are vital to legitimate science. I'd like to spend a minute here because we don't really emphasize enough how the local region and their basic knowledge, how much it is important. Of course, a foreigner, a person who's outside of Africa can come and say a few things to make the infrastructure or the response better. But the person within Africa, in the local region, the kind of lessons or the kind of experience they have, those are really legitimate and they are vital for a legitimate scientific innovation. And we really need to foster this more and more. And this is why I constantly say community engagement within the region and cross-border is very important to resolve any of the issues that we are talking about, whether that's DURC, whether that's anything else, whether that's tech-related innovations. Community engagement and public trust is the key. Next slide, please. So a couple of recommendations that I want to talk about. So first, I think there's a lot of good work that's happening in Africa, and kudos to Africa CDC and all other local regions, including GET. GET is doing a lot of work in terms of communications, and kudos to them for that. So what I'll say is regional harmonization is absolutely critical. I mean, WHO has some great guidelines. Africa CDC is coming up with this entire framework. There is AU, NEPAD, which is leading a lot of these coordinated efforts. But I think right now what is needed is harmonization. So it is less fragmented. There's more support for national adaptation. So so one region is not more capacitated than the other. It should be more harmonized in terms of how these frameworks are used. Second, in my opinion, should be strengthening the national laws and institutional oversight. Again, keep in mind, each institution is the first line of defense towards your public health security and national security. So we need to absolutely strengthen them and capacitate them. Third, actually, in my opinion, I should have probably said it first, funders are absolutely critical. These are the people who are providing the money. So if they make a requirement of biosafety, biosecurity risk assessment, if they make a requirement of DURC assessment, then that basically becomes the norm in the very beginning of the research life cycle and gets carried on for the rest of the life cycle. So while they're investing in capacity, funders should really take a note and make this a priority, because this is a funding innovation is equal to funding safety and security. They are not out of each other. They should be the cost of doing business. Fourth, institutions should implement SOPs, training, and secure data practices. It should be a training that is coming within the institution, so it's sustainable. And finally, make community engagement a governance pillar. I think this is the central part. Community engagement is absolutely non-negotiable and must be done. And in my conclusion, very quickly, if I can go to the next slide, please. So we talked about various different things, but I would end by saying that Africa is at a critical inflection point. The same technology which has the power to transform health and agriculture and they are also able to bring new risk, which could be catastrophic if they're not managed properly. So innovation and safety, like I said before, they're not in opposition, because a lot of times we have to make this case, just not in Africa, but in all of the countries I speak about this, that innovation and safety, because there are many countries, without naming them, where they don't want to talk about safety, security, and innovation in the same sentence, because they think that that takes the meaning out of innovation, or innovation is going to slow down if we talk about safety, security. But as a subject matter expert, I would say I'm a scientist first, and then I became a safety, security policy expert. Safety and security are not in opposition of innovation. They actually come together, they work together. So with proportionate, context sensitive governance, they reinforce each other. And so my call to you, just as an African continent as subject matter experts, let's work together to safeguard innovation responsibly, ensuring Africa leads in both science and security. So that is an important point I really want to make here. And I think I'm at the end of my slide, end of my deck. So next slide, please. So all I would say is that we see a safe and secure and very innovative, thriving, food secure Africa. And so we have to really make some of these governance gaps. We have to fill in these governance gaps, and we have to work together as a community to make that, to make public safety, national security, public health safety and security, and food security a priority. Thank you very much for your time. I'll take any questions if you have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oparupa, for that very detailed presentation on understanding dual use research and its impact on Africa health science. One thing I'm taking from your presentation is, number one, the importance of collaboration on multi or transdisciplinary approach to improve innovation in Africa, and at the same time ensure safety of those innovations. Innovation and safety, they are not working against each other. It's important for us, as we continue to develop science in Africa, biotechnology, for us to understand that safety is very important. And when we talk about safety, it's not just the duty of one person, it's not just for the scientist or the policymaker or the community. Everybody have to work together to ensure the safety of innovation research that is coming out of Africa. Thank you very much, Dr. Aparupa, for that very detailed presentation, and thank you for continuing to give positive response to get anytime we request for support like this from you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Bobadai.
Thank you very much. And I have to say a very big thank you to our participants also. I'm seeing experts from different parts of the world, from Uganda, from Brazil, from South Africa, from US, from India, from China. Like I used to say, you are the reason why we do this every month. Thank you for joining us again today. And we are going to be sharing the slides with our participants at the end of the webinar, and also be giving a certificate of participation to everybody that is part of the webinar today. Without spending much time, I'll go straight to our next speakers, and our next speakers are from the World Health Organization, WHO. They'll be talking to us on strengthening dual-use research in Africa, the WHO Global Framework, and the Uganda national experience. We have two experts, subject matter experts from WHO today. The first person is Dr. Swatiana Rajatonirina. I hope I pronounced it correctly. If not, I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce it correctly. So she will be speaking to us on global WHO framework and tools for responsible life science. And we also have Dr. Andrew Niwagaba Pakiaga. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce it correctly. We're speaking to us on lessons from Uganda's pilots and national level translation. So I will take the bow of the speaker in 2 minutes and hand over the floor for them to speak for about 20 minutes. So Dr. Swatiana is a technical officer, Science for Health Department, Science Division, World Health Organization. She's a scientist and global health professional with over 16 years of experience in preclinicals and clinical research and public health, particularly in prevention, preparedness, and control of epidemic and pandemic-prone diseases in diverse international contexts, including resource-limited countries and countries in Africa. Since 2020, she has served as a technical officer in the Emerging Technologies Research Prioritization and Support Unit within the Science Division of the World Health Organization headquartered in Geneva. In this role, she coordinates upstream work on fostering responsible conduct of life science, mitigating biorisk, and governing dual-use research. Our responsibilities span the development of governance and mitigation frameworks, operationalizing norms and standards, raising awareness and building capacity, engaging stakeholders across disciplines and sectors, and mobilizing resources. Prior to her joining WHO headquarters, she worked at the WHO region office in Africa between 2014 and 2020, where she served as a regional focal point for integrated disease surveillance and response, influenza surveillance and response, and pandemic influenza preparedness. Earlier in her career, she worked as a clinical research coordinator on influenza virus at the Pasteur Institute of Madagascar and completed her postdoctoral training at Novartis Diagnostics and Vaccine in Siena, Italy. Doc, we are very happy to have you join our webinar today. Thank you very much for agreeing to speak. I'll hand over the platform to you to speak for about 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and the introduction. Just maybe take a minute to share my screen. Okay, so thanks again for the organizer of this important webinar for the opportunity. Once again, my name is Swatiana Rajatonirina, and I'm a technical officer of the WHO Science Division. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And today I will be speaking about the WHO work stream dedicated to fostering the responsible use of life sciences and governing dual-use research. And this first part of the presentation will be focused on presenting WHO resources on this area of work. And then I will hand over to my colleague from country office to talk a little bit more about the more practical example and sharing experience from the piloting of the framework in Uganda. Just maybe really a quick word before I'm starting the presentation to clarify that my participation in this webinar is solely in the capacity my capacity as a WHO staff member. So this is part of our framework for engaging non-state actors. Okay, so let me start by setting the context and to say that the WHO Science Division works to strengthen member states' capacity to leverage science and innovation for better health outcomes, and especially for vulnerable populations. And this is really increasingly important in today's fast-paced, innovation landscape. As my the first speaker said, we are really navigating now huge and impressive advances in innovation and emerging technologies. And here in the slide, you can see really it spans from new drugs and vaccines, innovative treatment, medical devices. It was also listed in the previous presentation, and that has been accelerated by the international, commerce, cheaper technology, ease of access, the diversity of actors as well. But what is really key is that, as highlighted before, these breakthroughs in medicines and technologies offer great promise, but they also raise challenges. And they raise also risk, and particularly in governing biorisks and dual-use research. So as science evolves, our strategy must also adapt to ensure that it is used safely, responsibly, and equitably in line with global health needs. So coming to the topic of the presentation and building on this evolving landscape. So since 2020, our team has developed global resources to promote the responsible use of life sciences, mitigate biorisk, and govern dual-use research. And a major milestone was really the release of the global guidance framework for the responsible use of the life sciences in September 2022. And this framework was really developed in a participatory and inclusive manner, just to also echo what has been presented earlier, to say the importance of really founders, publishers, editors, and also the academy, because prior to the development of this framework, we conducted really a dialogue for this group of stakeholders to hear about also their perspective around dual-use research of concern, and key takeaways from those dialogue informed also the development of the framework, plus over different consultation and working group. Just to say that it is true, the importance of different stakeholders is really key when it comes to the governance of dual-use research. And then to support really the use and the uptake of this framework, two complementary tools and resources were developed. So first, the WHO Academy training course on dual-use research and the responsible use of the life sciences launched in May. So this is an online training course. And secondly, the biorisk implementation and evaluation tool called in short BRIT that is currently being finalized. So just to quickly also say here that this work aligns with key global instruments, including the International Health Regulation, the World Health Assembly Resolution on strengthening biological risk management adopted in 2024 and WHO pandemic agreement endorsed in this year, all aimed at strengthening the biosafety and biosecurity capacities in member states, just to name a few. Moving forward, I think, as also presented previously, it is really important to establish a shared understanding on key terms. And in a complex and multidisciplinary fields like, life sciences, clear terminology is essential for effective communication and collaboration across sectors and borders. So let's focus on three definitions here, which has been really put in the context of the framework. So first, biorisks refers to the probability or the chance that an event caused by accidents, inadvertent or deliberate misuse of life sciences can adversely affect the health of humans, non-human animals, plants, the agriculture, and the environment. Dual-use research describe a research conducted for peaceful and beneficial purposes that has the potential to produce knowledge, information, methods, products, or technologies that could also be intentionally misused to endanger the health of humans, non-human animals, plants, and agriculture, and the environment. Now, dual-use research of concern is then a subset of this research that could be easily misapplied, often with little or no modification, and have the potential to create negative consequences for the health of human, non-human animals, plants and agriculture, and the environment. So just to share these three definitions, so we can now move forward with really this next slide that offers a quick overview of the framework scope that goes beyond the usual pathogens, highlighting the type of research and technologies. And here we can have also the same list of emerging technologies as listed previously. But in addition, from the training course, you can also really get a real-world example of what we mean with dual-use research versus dual-use research of concern. So just, a quick announce here to say and to encourage everyone that is interested to go enroll to the course to get really practical insight and to connect key concept with a really practical example. So in the following next slide, I will concentrate, as I said, on the quick overview of the different resources, and I will start here with the framework. So as said, this framework was released in September 2022. It was developed really from a public health perspective, so to address the safety and the security risks associated with the advances in life sciences. It calls on member states and relevant stakeholders in mitigating biorisk and strengthening the governance of dual-use research, with the goal of preventing really accident, inadvertent application, and deliberate misuse that could harm the health of human, animals, plants, and agriculture and environment. As said previously, this is really extends beyond the usual pathogen and encompass emerging and converging technologies, as highlighted in the previous slides. Just a quick word also here to say that the framework adopts a One Health approach and by a comprehensive biorisk management that relies on three core pillars: the laboratory laboratory biosecurity, and the oversight of dual-use research. And as you can see here, it has a different really section. This is a big document of over 20 pages. So it has been designed really to be flexible. So the framework allows users to go to navigate easily and focus on the section that are most relevant to their needs and roles. It is available in 6 official WHO languages, plus in Urdu and Portuguese. Just to point here, I think really what makes this document also unique is the section about the 9 values and principles to guide the decision making, and this is somehow echoing the ethical component that has been presented previously, but goes beyond, because we have listed there 9 values and principle that also comes with associated commitment. And of course, the more practical chapter of the document, which provides really tools and mechanisms, the 6-step approach, checklist, scenarios also, and case studies. So maybe to conclude on the framework and to share a key recommendation, the document really highlights that mitigating biorisk and governing dual-use research is a global issue impacting all countries, although we recognize that countries are at different starting level and starting point. There is no really size-fits-all approach. So we encourage a shared responsibility that needs collaboration really across different actors and sectors. And of course, the framework is flexible, and it needs to be implemented, taking into account the different context and the unique needs and priority of the different setting. Quickly, just to say here that from this document, the framework, we have moved into more practical implementation. So to translate the guidance into action, to support real world decision making through the different list of activity here. And maybe for the topic of my presentation, I will focus on the 2 additional resources, which is the training and the implementation and the evaluation tool for the rest of my presentation. So the WHO Academy training course on responsible use of the life sciences and the governance of dual-use research. So the objective here is really to discuss the way to examine the dual-use research issue, and to discuss the way to identify and mitigate potential risk, and through using really a concrete example. So this training has been developed using really the key element of the framework, and in terms of audience, it is designed for a broad One Health audience. The course fosters cross-sector collaboration. Just quickly to say also that this training course has a basic level knowledge, so it's really targeting the first level layer of training. It's an interactive course. free for the public, and it is accessible to a wide audience. It is organized, as you can see here, in 2 series of modules, and the training takes about 3 hours to complete, with a certificate of completion at the end. Just to highlight here as well that the training is flexible, and the PowerPoint presentation of each module can be downloaded and adapted to different learning needs, context, but also local languages, and the translation into the official WHO languages is ongoing, plus Portuguese as well, to make sure that we can expand really its reach and impact. So my last slide here is about the Biorisk implementation and evaluation tool, so BRIT. And to say that BRIT aims to support member state and other stakeholders to strengthen and develop biorisk management measures relevant to their needs and context. It's a self-assessment voluntary tool that enables the beneficiaries to systematically identify existing strengths, gaps, and needs, and it's offer also structured guidance and actionable insight for both national and institutional stakeholders. So just to conclude here that the BRIT has been developed, building on existing also documents, such as the joint external evaluation, the SPAR, the NAPS, so that we really build on also what is used with additional tool. With that, quick thanks to everyone that has been involved in this work since 2020, and especially the donors of the project. And I will pass over directly to my colleague for the rest of the presentation. Thank you. Andrew, I don't know if you are around.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swatina. I think Dr. Andrew can have the floor, please. Dr. Andrew, if you can hear me, you have the floor, please.
Yes, good afternoon and good morning to you. This is just some slides showing the experience of Uganda in piloting the framework. If we go to the next slide. So in terms of the framework for the responsible use of life sciences in Uganda, we had 3 main objectives: to study and determine the feasibility, the appropriateness, and the applicable sciences, and mitigating biorisks and governance. Next slide. Yeah. Yes. So in terms of the roadmap, in January 2023, Uganda's interest to pilot the framework was initiated, where the country showed interest. And then in October 2023, the situation analysis was undertaken and the field survey. And then November 2023, the National Stakeholders Sensitization Workshop was held. Then in March 2024, we held both a technical stakeholders workshop and a high-level stakeholders sensitization meeting. And implementation of the action plan continued after 2024. Next. Yeah, so in terms of the stakeholders field survey, this was our methodology. we picked up a number of organizations to be surveyed. There were 36 in total. Some of these were education and training, research and development, policy and regulatory, and our sampling method was purposive, whereby 92% of these were directly involved in research. And then 47% of those interviewed had a good understanding of dual-use research in the context of life sciences. Next. I'm not seeing the slide move. Yeah, so this was the outcome of the familiarity with the framework. 80% were not familiar, 14% were familiar, 3% familiar. Next. Yeah, so in terms of determining the strength from this survey, we found that the domesticated ISO and the WHO Biosafety Manual, 4th edition, were available. The Biosafety and Biosecurity Association of Uganda was in place. Accredited laboratories with ISO 15189 and ISO 17025. We had over 60 plus labs. And then there was also in-service training programs in human and non-human animal health and the environment. We also looked at Biosafety and Biosecurity National Coordination Office, which was in place. There was a pool of national BRM experts, auditors, and mentors. And then we had active coordination with the National Contact Person for Bioweapon Convention and One Health Biosafety and Biosecurity training materials and curriculum. In addition, there was One Health National BRM assessment tool aligned to the ISO, and the Uganda National Council of Science and Technology was in place, which was overseeing research oversight. Next. Yeah, in addition, there were the Biorisk management mentorship toolkits, the Africa CDC subject matter experts for biosafety, biosecurity available in country and the region. And then there was a regular national biorisk management assessment conducted across both the human, the animal, water, and environmental health laboratories. And then there was also adopted national guidelines for managing high consequence agents and toxins. Next. So some of the areas for strengthening was definitely the legislation. Legislation has been an ongoing process and it's not yet been finalized. And that is an area for strengthening, financing for biosafety and biosecurity initiatives, and then infrastructural equipment and technical capacitation, and also the need to develop a framework and program for certification, licensing, and monitoring of facilities, personnel handling high consequence agents and toxins. In terms of also some of the challenges, no district law for biosafety and biosecurity, and then rapid advancements in science and technology, no dedicated national budget for biosafety and biosecurity, and then there was the siloed implementation and limited awareness on dual-use research. And next. So in terms of the national sensitization workshop, we held this in November 21st to 23rd, 2023. We had various sectors that were represented: the human health, non-human health, the plant and agriculture, environment, security, internal affairs, foreign affairs, academia, implementing partners. And we also had representatives from the African CDC, the WHO, Uganda, and headquarters, and also WHO Afro. Next. So the workshop outcomes, as outlined, stakeholders sensitized and increased their awareness on the topic of responsible use of life sciences and dual-use research governance, and a draft roadmap was collaboratively developed for the implementation of the global guidance framework for the responsible life sciences use in Uganda, as shown here on the right. Next.
Hello, Doc, are you still there?
So we also had the technical stakeholders 2024, the technical stakeholder framework and the roadmap for operation of life sciences, and then refine the strategies to improve the introduction and implementation of the framework documented, and the stakeholders' profiles were also documented. Next. Then for the high-level stakeholder sensitization meeting, the timeline was March 15th of 2024. Government commitment was made to domesticate and operationalize the framework, and the Uganda National Council of Science and Technology was designated as the technical lead agency for framework domestication. On the right here is the Minister for Science and Technology who chaired that meeting. Next. So the outcomes of the pilot project, the awareness was raised about the framework. The roadmap developed support framework domestication and operationalization. And then the experience, lessons learned, success factors were also documented. Now, what next? The pilot project results to be disseminated with the project reports, which is all now done, the manuscript for publication, and then being able to disseminate these at meetings, workshops, and conferences. And then implementation of the roadmap, establishment of a national technical working committee, and domestication of the framework. And then we do continued awareness raising efforts. Next. So what are the lessons learned and success factors? Identifying a convening agency with authority was very critical in the initial stages. The national stakeholder engagement of relevant stakeholders was critical. Commitment and buy-in of decision makers of the different ministries, departments, and agencies, and then leveraging existing structures and frameworks to anchor the domestication process. And then development partner support, WHO would take process, identification of key subject matter experts in the country, and lastly, the enabling environment. Next. So this is just the acknowledgement, which is my last slide. We were led by the Office of the Prime Minister, which coordinates different agencies. There was also the Minister of Science and Technology, and then other relevant MDAs, the Minister of Health, Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, the Minister of Water and Environment, the Minister of Security, Defense, and then the National Council of Science and Technology, and all the other stakeholders. So this is the last slide, and I hand it over to you, Dr. Ayo Dotun.
Thank you very much, Dr. Andrew and Dr. Swatina, for presenting the WHO framework on responsible life science and giving us an example, a practical example of what is going on in Uganda. I'm sure the framework that was presented by Dr. Swatina is online, and our participants can go online and download so that they can maximize, read it, and have a deeper understanding of what dry use research is, and the tools and frameworks for responsible life science as laid down by WHO, and also the Uganda pilots. What is going on in some countries in Africa is always very important for us to have a clear understanding of what is happening within the continent so that other countries can learn one or two things from it. And Dr. Swatina also made mention of some capacity building opportunities on dual use research organized by WHO, which I will request or like our participants to maximize the opportunity and learn more from the capacity building opportunities WHO is offering on dual use research. So without spending much time, we'll go straight to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Maria Mazon Masida. She's a project coordinator, WMD program, the United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research. I'm going to read about for about 2 minutes and hand over the floor to her to speak. So Dr. Maria is a project coordinator of the Weapon of Mass Destruction Program of the UNIDIR. focusing on the chemical and biological weapons work stream. She coordinates the Biological Weapon Convention National Implementation Database projects and conducts research and analysis of CBW issues and supports the design and implementation of the program strategies and projects. Before joining the university, Maria was a policy leader fellow of the European University Institute, where she worked on strengthening the participation of the Global South in weapon of mass destruction regimes. Previously, she was a civil servant with 10 years of progressive experience at the Argentine Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where she worked on the implementation of the Chemical Weapon Convention. With substantial interdisciplinary training, she holds a master's degree in international affairs from the Graduate Institute in Geneva and graduated cum laude as a Bachelor of Political Science from the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina. Maria speaks English, Spanish, and French fluently. Maria, well, thank you very much for joining us today. I'll hand over the floor to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I'm very pleased to be with you today to talk about this important topic. I hope you can see my slides, but let me know if not. So it's, as I said, a pleasure to join you today, and I need to note that I'm speaking in my personal capacity. But my contribution today, I think, aims at complementing what other colleagues have already mentioned. I will focus a little bit more on the Biological Weapons Convention and its surrounding tools and activities that together form, let's say, the broader international governance ecosystem for managing biological weapons. And I'll focus a little bit on national implementation and education initiatives relevant to dual-use risk. I hope not to duplicate what others have been mentioning, but I don't think so. So to begin, I think it's important to recognize the complex, multifaceted nature of biological threats, biological risks. It's wide and it ranges from natural outbreaks of infectious diseases to accidents involving the release of dangerous pathogens, but also deliberate attacks. And these attacks can vary from economic sabotage, such as attacks on crops or livestock, to also localized biological attacks on individuals, all the way up to other larger scale biological weapons that are capable of causing mass casualties. And the impact of the biorisks depends on a country's vulnerabilities, preparedness, and response capacities. What this means is that there is no one-size-fits-all solution that can address every biological risk. The risk is different in different contexts, since the challenges that a densely populated urban center faces during a disease outbreak, let's say, may differ very widely from those that a rural area might face, where agriculture is the primary economic driver, for example. So identifying and implementing effective solutions requires an understanding of the context of each state, of each region. And the African Union's Agenda 2063 articulates a vision of, and I'm quoting here, a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. And science and technology are a central part of achieving that vision, with health innovation, agricultural resilience, but infectious diseases, being them natural or accidental or deliberate, as I mentioned, are a challenge to this. We have seen this in Ebola outbreaks in West Africa, with over 1,100 deaths and billions in economic losses, or the COVID-19 pandemic with over 37 billion US dollar output losses in 2020 alone, according to some estimates. We have already heard about this from other speakers. So this demonstrates how health emergencies can ripple across sectors and not only public health, but also through governance itself. Unfortunately, history does show us that disease has been weaponized in the past by various actors to different ends. This includes, of course, bioweapon state programs, but also bioterrorism. And while there has been no large-scale bioterrorism attack to date in Africa, the continent, as every other place, does have vulnerabilities that could be exploited by terrorist organizations. And it is true that there are significant limitations to the weaponization of biology by actors with limited resources. For example, it's different to control the spread of pathogens, and it's complex to deliver these agents, but the threat cannot be ruled out entirely. So, of course, we've heard about this. It's important to remember that biotechnology and scientific and technical advances are and should be part of the solution to all of our common challenges, and developing our nations. Advances in vaccines, in diagnostics, in resilient crops are the foundation of a more secure and healthy continent. And that same tools can be misused. So this is the dual use dilemma that's at the heart of today's conversation, and where governance frameworks become very important. So to prevent the misuse of biology, to prevent the harmful use of biology, without constraining the science and technology advances that are useful. All the way in 1972, states negotiated the Biological Weapons Convention. And this treaty is more important than ever before in circumstances now where the technology is advancing, converging, diffusing around the globe. So the BWC is the cornerstone of global efforts to prevent the hostile misuse of biology, and it was the first treaty to ban an entire category of weapons of mass destruction. The treaty has now near universal membership, which is a great news, of course. 2 countries from the Pacific just joined a few months ago. However, you can see that the African continent in particular still has some states that have not ratified or acceded to the convention. There are different reasons about this. Some of them are definitely political and security reasons, but others have to do with competing priorities in the government. For example, where the BWC is not seen as important as other health or development priorities by political leadership. There are a lot of things going on, but nevertheless, the progress has been steady, and I understand that there are countries in the process of joining in the near future as well. So the convention itself, it's very short, but it's very comprehensive in its scope as well, because it includes the use of biological weapons against humans, but also animals and against plants. And it's based on what is known as the general purpose criteria, meaning that it applies to any biological agent or toxin, no matter their origin or how they were produced, if these are intended to be used for hostile purposes. So this makes the BWC a future-proof convention. As science evolves, for example, new synthetic biology may allow to create novel pathogens, but the prohibition still holds. So despite of being short, the convention is effective, and indeed it has produced a very strong norm against weapons of mass destruction. It is indeed a taboo. I mean, nobody would openly admit to use biological weapons, as it is considered to be repugnant to the conscience of humankind, as it is mentioned in some documents. So I'm not going to go into details here, but I did want to mention some of the key provisions. First and foremost, foremost, the BWC is a non-proliferation disarmament treaty, but it also has a solidarity clause, let's say Article 7 in the bottom left, where you can see that it allows for assistance, response, and preparedness in the case where a state party has suffered the use or the threat of use of a biological weapon. And I also want to highlight the development aspects of peaceful uses of biological science under Article 10. This article affirms the right of states parties to exchange equipment, materials, information for peaceful purposes, and to cooperate in the life sciences for the benefit of all. Nevertheless, there are also some institutional issues within the convention. As much as it is important, the BWC has some relative weaknesses in terms of the institutionalization. It does not have a verification regime, such as the Chemical Weapons Convention has, or the NPT and with the IAEA. And mainly because of this, it does not have an international organization. It does have a 4-person implementation support unit here in Geneva, where I work. We work very closely with them. But this 4-person unit in Geneva, together with the Office of Disarmament Affairs, they played really an outsized role in supporting states parties, especially those with limited resources. And finally, these institutional issues also include a limited budget. I've heard people saying this is comparable to a small McDonald's budget. Although this budget is also, it adds to voluntary contributions that states parties and other stakeholders do to the implementation support unit to support more activities being done and more things to be done. So really, it's the process of there's a process of states parties working on strengthening the convention. Right now, there is a group, a working group on the strengthening of the convention that was established in 2022 to develop proposals on science and technology review, on international cooperation, on verification measures, among other aspects. But because of all of these relatively weak institutional issues, it is critical for states parties to implement their obligations nationally. This is at the core of the convention and really for any international treaty. But for the BWC to be an effective instrument, it requires implementation under Article 4. So this includes enacting laws, establishing oversight bodies, enforcing biosecurity protocols, a lot of different things. Because without effective implementation by states parties, the treaty is not sufficient to address the ever-evolving biological threats landscape. And states parties, the more states parties there are, the better the international community can really prepare for and respond to these challenges. Because in this regard, we are only as strong as our weakest link, as it is usually said. So nearly all states, African states, are party to the BWC, and significant progress have been made, as I said. To help keep track of what states are doing to implement the convention, UNIDIR and VERTIC a few years ago went ahead and developed the BWC National Implementations Database. This is not an official BWC database. We do it here at UNIDIR, but it's a publicly accessible tool that provides open source information in detailed profiles for each state party, including all African states parties, and allows to also compare between profiles and text search, for example. It includes profiles with information across 7 categories. These are provisions, biosafety and biosecurity, which might be particularly relevant for us today. Also export and import controls, oversight of dual use research, also very relevant, organizational frameworks, confidence building measures, and cooperation and assistance measures. I'll focus now on the information we have on the database on Africa in particular. The database shows that many states in the region have some prohibitions on biological weapons. For example, South Africa enforces the Non-Proliferation of Weapons of Mass Destruction Act, with a legislation that establishes the South African Council for Non-Proliferation of WMDs and oversees the implementation of the international treaties, including the BWC. But there are some general gaps in implementation measures, as you can see in comparison here with other regions, the average numbers, let's say. Beyond provisions, so states have gone further on some biosafety and biosecurity aspects that I wanted to show you. And the database includes, includes a lot of aspects on biosafety and biosecurity, so I cannot show you all of them, but I put here some examples of what includes. And just to give you two very good examples, we heard about the Uganda experience, and among these, they have produced guidelines to guide researchers, including the Laboratory Biosafety and Biosecurity Manual. I think it was 2021. So this is included in our database. And another example is Ethiopia, which has published biosafety and biosecurity guidelines for health laboratories. I think the most recent edition is 2022. These guidelines, for example, outline the procedures to ensure a safe handling of biological materials, both in research and in clinical settings. And we would be happy to update or include other examples. These are obviously not the only ones that we have, but if you find that in your country profile you want to add something or correct something, please reach out to us. We'd be very happy to do so. This database has proved to be very useful. It has been used by over 1,000 users each month, and it's designed to strengthen the convention in a number of ways, but particularly for you, for this audience, it might be useful to mention that by allowing states and donors and offerers of assistance to identify where are the gaps in the governance of each state's body, this database can be a tool to help understand, the big picture of the governance on the state, and therefore understand where work might be needed, and enable a more targeted support and capacity building activities. So I do encourage you to explore this tool further. Again, you can access it through bwcimplementation.org. But now, moving further, in addition to national efforts, this international cooperation I just mentioned is essential for addressing the cross-border threats. So through Article 10, I mentioned already international cooperation, the BWC also has a database for offers and requests of assistance and several other projects. So the BWC also provides a platform for states to share best practices, to exchange technical expertise, to strengthen their regional biosecurity networks. And the BWC can allow to share this information to coordinate with other initiatives, since we have already heard there is much happening on this regard outside of the BWC. So partnerships with organizations such as WHO, but also the G7 Global Partnership, for example, play a critical role in really enhancing biosafety and biosecurity infrastructure worldwide. I wanted to highlight one in particular that is being done under UNODA and the Implementation Support Unit for the BWC. So several states parties have indicated that they needed more assistance to enhance their domestic implementation of the BWC. And in response to that, the Signatory Initiative to Mitigate Biological Threats in Africa, or for short, SIMBA, was launched in 2020. This was done by the G7 Global Partnership Against the Spread of Weapons and Materials of Mass Destruction. So this SIMBA initiative by the Global Partnership includes a collaboration with the BWC Implementation Support Unit. And they have been, doing a lot of activities in Africa. They have been very active. You can see on screen all of the activities taking place to raise awareness, to draft legislation, to support the designation of national contact points, also to promote states that haven't already joined to join the convention. But of course, this initiative also has further activities beyond the BWC and the Implementation Support Unit itself to support lab safety, for example, through the Africa CDC and other partners as well. So this is really interesting. And all of these aspects are important because governance of dual-use research of concern is not only about treaties, governance, laws, it's also about the practice of people. The scientists, the educators, the students, the professionals across disciplines, what they do. And at UNIDIR, we have recently published a report that is entitled Biorisk Governance, Advancing Biosecurity Education in Life Sciences. This is authored by a colleague of mine, and it includes not a comprehensive example, but you can see on screen some examples of what has been done and it's currently being done across the world in the realm of education. And since these initiatives can be fragmented, somehow disconnected, or relying on really one or two very committed individuals that take them forward, this report also makes a point of highlighting 7 approaches that can strengthen biosecurity education. This includes creating a central repository of resources and lessons learned, building sustainable human resources like trainers or training educators, mapping stakeholders, identifying regional and national champions, partnering with academia and industry to integrate biosecurity into their curriculum. What else? Linking education efforts to the governance frameworks like the BWC or the WHO, so they are not disconnected from what's happening in the broader picture. Also really practical things such as engaging the textbook authors or the conference organizers to propose and ensure that biosecurity is streamlined. It is there, that the BWC, for example, is mentioned in the books and activities. All of these things. And so one of the educational initiatives that I did want to highlight today that is being implemented by also UNODA. There we go. This is the UNODA Youth for Biosecurity initiative. It's supported by the European Union, and this program has trained young scientists and professionals from around the world on BWC processes. Because it's really striking that you can go through your entire education in life sciences, undergraduate, master's, PhD, without knowing, ever hearing about the BWC. So initiatives like this are helping to fill that gap. But in particular, I wanted to mention this because out of the UNODA Youth for Bio initiative, one group of, I think, Nigerian fellows developed a handbook for high school students. So this is a primer on biosafety, biosecurity concepts tailored for this audience, for teenagers. And it's important because scientific literacy is growing among young people. There is STEM curricula being built, and you have labs, DIY labs growing. So we do need to reach them early and embed responsible practices into their minds early. Make them aware of things like the BWC, WHO frameworks, etc., etc. So finally, I know my time is almost up, but really quickly, perhaps, I want to mention other elements of the regime against biological weapons. So one of these elements, it's the UN Secretary General mechanism, the UNSGM, for investigating alleged use of chemical or biological weapons. So this was established in 1987, and it gives the power to the Secretary General of the UN to initiate investigations upon request of any member state. It has been invoked 3 times and remains now the only international mechanism that is available for states to investigate alleged biological weapons use, because this is not contemplated in the BWC as it stands now. So maintaining the readiness of this mechanism to be able to be launched upon request at any time requires sustained political, technical, logistical effort. The UNSGM team is working on updating the rosters of experts, the laboratory networks, and keeping the procedures up to date. And I'd say there is room for further involvement from African experts and laboratories in this mechanism. Then we also have the UN Security Council Resolution 1540. It obliged all states to prevent non-state actors from acquiring weapons of mass destruction, including biological weapons. And it requires national control, laws, enforcement measures, many of which, of course, overlap with the BWC. So for African states, I'd say that aligning the BWC implementation with the 1540 obligations reduces the duplication of efforts and really maximizes the support they can get. So this is important because sometimes national experts, national officers are a little bit overwhelmed by the requirements of the international regimes. And I say this from my personal experience. And finally, another element that we need to mention as well are the multilateral export control regimes, of which some states, but not all, are part of. This serve to curb proliferation of dual-use material and equipment, included, but of course not limited, because it includes other things as well, but also biological material and technologies. But these regimes also raise some concerns, particularly from states from the non-aligned movement, regarding perhaps the fairness or the transparency in the application of these controls or licensing processes. But also regarding this international regime, I do want to highlight something that was also mentioned in the first presentation. So we did mention that the risks the BWC seeks to protect, to prevent us, protect us from and prevent, these are within a broader spectrum, right? From natural outbreaks, lab accidents, delivered attacks, and each require different responses. But the governance is stronger if there are interconnections, if we recognize that interconnection and we don't work in silos. So the BWC regime also depends on coordination with the WHO, with FAO, with WOA, with many, many others. Because building lab capacity, building disease surveillance systems, this all helps improve public health, public security, and emergency preparedness. Strong emergency preparedness really is what makes us resilient against any incident, be it natural or deliberate. Again, when efforts are siloed, resources are wasted, there is duplication, but if there is further integration, further communication, I think really everybody benefits. So I think I'll leave it at that. Perhaps to conclude, I want to say that the BWC is at the heart of this broad prohibition. And while biological risks are evolving, so are our governance tools for it. We should strive for that. And education and outreach to scientists are key efforts. I mentioned some, the Youth for Biosecurity Fellowship, but there's also the Tianjin guidelines of the IPSAN network, many, many others. And we're seeing, I think, a growing momentum or growing initiatives. And yeah, just if these are implemented and adopted really by researchers, by scientists, if they make them their own and they can localize it in their own realities, this is really where the difference is made. I hope our discussion will contribute to building strong governance now to ensure that scientific progress, both advances, innovation, can help development and also security for Africa continent, but also beyond for the international community. And I look forward to hearing your perspectives, your experiences as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria, for that very detailed presentation on BWC and the activities in Nigeria to prevent biosecurity threats on the continent of Africa. Let me say a big thank you to Daniel Fritz and other members of the Implementation Support Unit, the ISU, for the fantastic job they're doing, especially in countries in Africa. We've seen increase in number of countries that are part of the BWC in recent years, and hopefully we hope the remaining countries will join as soon as possible. Without wasting time, we'll go to the last speaker, and I think we're saving the best for the last. And our last speaker is Dr. Labi Bassi. Dr. Labi Bassi is president of the African Biological Safety Association, ABSA, and he will be speaking to us on promoting responsible science and ethical awareness amongst African researchers and institutions. I'm going to read your bio, Doc, and hand over the floor to you to speak for about 20 minutes. Dr. Labi is a biosafety advisor and executive assistant at the International Institute for Hygiene in Rabat, Morocco. He is an African region subject matter under the African CDC Regional Biosafety and Biosecurity Initiative. He's also the International Federation of Biosafety Association UBA certified professional in the field of biorisk management and biosecurity. Dr. Bassi has participated in many biosafety and biosecurity monitoring programs as a mentor, and he conducted many BS training programs in Morocco and some other African countries in cooperation with many international organizations like IFBA and US SANBI National Laboratories, SNL. He has coordinated project activities pertaining to biosafety, biosecurity, biorisk management, and laboratory with US CRDF Global, the US Georgetown University, and Dr. Batsi is the president, founder of the Biorisk Management Association of Morocco, BAMAM, and the vice president of the African Biological Safety Association, AFPSA. Dr. Bassi, we are very happy to have you on this platform today. Handing over the platform to you to speak for about 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you share my presentation from your side?
Okay, give us 1 minute, we'll share it immediately.
Could you please share your slide from your end? We've not received your slide.
You receive it? Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Full screen, sorry. Okay, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. First of all, I will thank you for this kind introduction and my appreciation to the organizers, particularly Dr. Mubadoué, for inviting me to be part in this webinar alongside such distinguished speakers. On behalf of the African Biological Safety Association, AFSA, I would like to share some reflections on how an association dedicated to promote biosafety, biosecurity, and biorisk management can strengthen oversight of dual-use research in Africa. I will also highlight the experience of the Biorisk Management Association of Morocco in this area. So before to diving in that, let me begin with a brief introduction about the AFSA. So AFSA was created as a continental platform to advance biosafety and biosecurity. Our mission is, our vision is to promote excellence in biorisk management, and our mission is built on three pillars: education, advocacy, and professional networking. AFSA was born slide. AFSA was born in 2007 at a sub-regional meeting held by WHO on laboratory biosafety, raising awareness. And that meeting planted the seed. And since then, AFSA has grown into a continental professional. So just about, sorry.
Hello, Dr. Barsi. Can you hear me, please? We are
Yeah, I just want that there is something wrong with my slides.
No, we are controlling the slides from here.
Okay, so
Yeah.
can you go to the next one?
All right.
Okay, so just about 2 months ago, AFSA inaugurated its new executive team, which will serve from the 2025 to 2027. And as you can see in this slide, the board members come from 9 African countries, reflecting both diversity and reach. This new team has developed a strategic plan to guide AXA's future actions. So this strategic plan is based on 3 main pillars. Next. The first pillar is capacity building. It's about training programs, guidelines adapted to African context, systematic risk assessment, and responsible use of the EI. And the second pillar is policy and advocacy, and it's about supporting governments and institutions to strengthen regulations, harmonize standards, and integrating the cyber biosecurity into biosafety policies. And the last pillar is collaboration, and it's about strengthening connection with international partners and with the networks among African national biosecurity associations. So as you can see, dual use research oversight one of our priority in our strategic plan. But strategies only work if you have the right partners. Let me share some of ours. And as you can see in this slide, APSA has a strong partnership with Africa CDC through its Biosafety, Biosecurity initiative launched in 2021. And specifically for its operational priority number 5, which is the establishment of regional training and certification program for biosafety and biosecurity experts. Next. Next. We are also part of the African Genetic Biocontrol Consortium, created in 2020, and this platform opened doors to APSA to collaborate and connect with experts and researchers working on biological risks in emerging technology. Some of members serve as on the board of the National Biosecurity Association, as you can see in this slide. And it's true for the Nigerian Biosecurity Association, NEPSA, the Biosafety and Biosecurity Association of Uganda, BBEU, and the Biosafety and Biosecurity Association of South Sudan, BAS. And of course, the Biorisk Management Association of Morocco, BIMA, which I will speak about later. And this is an opportunity for APSA to start strengthening collaboration with these associations and to advance dual-use research oversight both nationally and regionally, with the aim of strengthening link with existing African Biosafety Association. In fact, next. In fact, and according to the International Federation of Biosafety Associations, at least 20 African countries have established a national association to promote biosafety, biosecurity, or biorisk management. APSA goal is to build a strong network platform that promotes collaboration, knowledge sharing, and the capacity building among these associations. With that context in mind, let's turn to the current state of dual-use research oversight in Africa, as it was mentioned by the previous speakers. Next one. So the reality is that most African countries lack formal oversight for dual-use research. And the Global Health Security Index confirms that this is a global problem. And the WHO joint external evaluation show that Africa faces major governance gaps. This absence of oversight for dual-use research creates a risk for both public health and security. Next. In terms of gaps, Africa has new formal dual-use research policies at national level, and even if biosafety laws exist, dual-use research oversight is rarely explicit. And the third gap is that the lack of expertise in reviewing research projects among the institutional committee. Next. In terms of challenges in implementing the oversight of dual-use research, we can mention oversight efforts often stand because national programs rely on limited budget and external donors rather than sustainable local funding. The culture, beliefs, and community perception can complicate how regulation are understood or accepted or enforced. Many institutions lack the technical expertise, trained staff, and infrastructure needed to implement effective oversight system. Next. So we're looking at the lesson learned from the other regions. We can see that there is many solutions, but these solutions should be adapted and must be adapted to our African context. You have as a first solution the tiered review, and you can see that is a screening level, first level and second level. Another measure is standardized dual-use research checklist, also help reviewers and also the researchers stay consistent on how they identify the risks. Another useful measure is the pre-publication flagging, where publishers are engaged to catch sensitive information before this information reaches the public domain. And in some regions, also compliance is also tied directly to the funding, and which creates strong incentive for institutions and scientists to follow oversight rules. And finally, regional hubs for expertise have proven valuable in supporting countries that not have enough local capacity. But African countries must adapt these measures and not copy and paste. One of encouraging example comes from Africa itself, and this example was mentioned by Dr. Swatiana Rajatinera and Dr. Andrew from Uganda. Uganda, the experience of Uganda piloting the adaptation of the WHO dual-use research self-assessment tool, this shows 2 points. The first one is that guidance or global guidance can be successfully tailored to African reality. And the second point is that other countries can build on that example from an African country. So that means that it's feasible and it can be adapted. Next one. So for Africa, solution must be first simple, practical, and low cost. We should strengthen existing committee rather than create new committee or new structure. And awareness campaigns should be delivered in local languages. And also oversight must reflect African research priorities like zoonotic disease and specific agricultural disease and emerging pathogens. For dual use oversight, that means checklists and tools that researchers can realistically use in their daily work. And this is exactly where Biosecurity Association can make a difference. Next. In fact, associations can raise awareness across member countries, develop dual use, adapted dual use research screening tools, or provide regional expertise panels. And also associations can advocate for national dual use research policy integration through a national biosafety association or biorisk management association. And lastly, train researchers and editors to review the projects and to recognize dual use research issues. Let me give you a concrete example from Biorisk Management Association in Morocco. Next one. So the Biorisk Management Association of Morocco have been active in biosafety awareness, biosecurity awareness, but also in dual use awareness. We've organized many regional seminars, workshops on raising awareness about biosafety, biosecurity, including dual use, in the health sector and also in the higher education sector. Next. Like in this slide, this is one of the seminars in an university in Casablanca City for master students and PhD students, and also university teachers. As you can see, the conference room was packed, and since we are getting a lot of requests for this kind of seminars, it shows that researchers are eager to learn more about the subject. Next one. Here we took the opportunity where all the masters and the PhD students are gathered in what we call the doctoral days to conduct a seminar. Next one. And this one is showing the contribution of BIMAM in a workshop to develop a national code of conduct. This workshop was organized, held by the Protection Civil Department in collaboration with the Robert Koch Institute and also the Center of Excellence and the Institute Pasteur of Morocco. Next one. This one is the last example, and this seminar was hosted by an university in Agadir in south of Morocco to emphasize the critical importance of dual use research. And this one is a little bit particular because at the end of this seminar, we presented, BIMA presented to the dean of the university a strategic policy document, explaining and outlining the step-by-step how to establish an IBC, an institutional biosafety committee at the university. And that was a crucial, and we hope that all these BIMAM's experience can be adapted by another African National Biosafety Association through the APSA. Next. So in conclusion, we can see that DURC, our dual use research oversight, as everyone agreed, is a shared responsibility. And Africa must adapt tools to its reality. Biosafety associations are the key enablers, and to strengthen dual use research oversight APSA welcome collaboration and stand ready to support African efforts. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bassi, for that detailed presentation on APSA, and congratulations on the fantastic job you guys are doing to ensure biosecurity and biosafety on the continent. Yeah, coming close to the end of the program today, we spent over 2 hours on this program, and I want to sincerely thank our audience for staying with us in the last 2 hours and listening to fantastic presentations by our speakers today. We've had presentations from WHO to presentations on APSA and other fantastic presentation too, presentation on BWC implementation, and 5 different presentations, what is happening in Uganda with biosecurity and other fantastic presentation. And we're coming close to the end of the webinar today. I'm sorry we are not going to be able to take questions because we spent over 2 hours. We are going to harvest all the questions I'm seeing here, and we are going to share them with our speakers, and hopefully they will going to respond to them, and we're going to share with participants later after this webinar. I also want to say that the presentations today, with the permission of our presenters, we are going to share with all the participants, and also going to share a certificate of participation with them as soon as possible. Like I used to say, you are the reason why we do this every month, and I want to thank all our participants again for staying with us in the last 2 hours. And I hope that they've learned so much from biosecurity activities on the continent and dual use research on the continent, how we can maximize innovative opportunities and reduce the biosecurity threats that goes with innovative research in the area of health, environment, biotechnology, and agri on the continent. So finally, I want to say a very big thank you to our presenters too. Your presentations have been very fantastic, and personally, I've learned so much from your presentations in the last 2 hours. Thank you for continuously collaborating with GETS. Thank you for answering us always when we call you. We say a big thank you to Dr. Andrew, to Dr. Sautina, to Maria Gazon, to my very good friend, Dr. Seputa. Thank you very much for your presentations, and thank you for sharing from your wealth of experience. We look forward to continue this collaboration with you after this presentation, after this webinar. And I can see that some of the link to WHO's framework has been shared on the chat box on Zoom link. You can go through the link and let's continue to learn about dual use research governance WHO frameworks on the continent. So we've come to the end of the webinar today, and on behalf of members and staffs of Global Emerging Pathogens Treatment Consortium, I say a big thank you again to our presenters and our participants. By God's grace, we're going to be meeting again same time next month to discuss another very important topic in the area of biosecurity and One Health. And before we go, I want us to know that there's an ongoing Ebola outbreak in Congo DR in Africa, and thank God it's being curtailed by experts in that part of the world as a transitionary approach to addressing the outbreak. And and we can see from what is going on that the outbreak is reducing drastically. Hopefully, we are going to be talking about this on our webinar this time next month by God's grace. Thank you very much, and have a fantastic rest of the day from Nigeria. Bye-bye to everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.